Today, I'm going to talk about low heart rate training after 100 miles. 8.09 miles, 90 minutes, 1 second per mile today, 141 beats per minute on average, running along the lakefront with an absolutely beautiful sunrise. So thankful that daylight savings is over and we're back to kind of the regular schedule. It gives me basically another hour of time for the sun to rise in the mornings for my morning run, and it's just so great to see the sunrise again. Last week, it was dark even after I was done with a run, and so it was kind of harder to get up in the morning and get going when you knew that after an hour and a half of running it would still be pitch black. So very happy to see the sun today. With today's mile, today is my 15th day of low heart rate training, and with today's miles I'm over 100 miles with Maffetone style training. Technically I'm at 127 miles of low heart rate training. But before we get into kind of my detail review over the last 2 weeks of this style of running, let's go over some disclosures. No one's paying me to try out low heart rate training, and no one is coaching me to do lower heart rate training. This is something that I've been interested in, that I've been curious about, and I thought now would be a good time to give it a shot. And so I'm kind of fumbling through all of this with a lot of help from you guys, definitely. But this is my first time going through this, so I'm not an expert, but I'm just trying to document the process of trying to run it in a very different way than I've ever really run before, and seeing kind of what the results are. So let's go over some of the results. Over the past 2 weeks, it was a very rough start in terms of getting used to low heart rate training, trying to keep my heart rate in the 135 to 145 beats per minute range. Now, the way that I got that range number is from the Maffetone formula, which is different than what a lot of people do for heart rate training. I don't care about my max heart rate. I don't care about VO2 max. I don't care about a lot of the things, 75% of threshold, all those other kind of like ratios and numbers. I don't need to know. It's not that I don't care. I just don't need to know them for this style or this approach. This approach is pretty straightforward. 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5 if you're in good health or not. And so I'm 40 or just about 40. So that puts me at 140 from 180. And then I'll add 5 because I'm in pretty good shape. And so 145 is kind of my max number that I'm going to be using for the upper limit. I consider it like a speed limit. And then 10 below that. So that's my range. So 135 to 145 is what I'm shooting for, not just as an average heartbeat per minute for the run, but at any given moment, that's where I'm trying to stay inside. And it's been really difficult. In the beginning, I was running 10-minute miles, 10-minute, 30-second miles at times, but averaging somewhere in about 10 minutes per mile for this first couple of days. Today's run was 9 minutes and 1 second per mile. And so after 2 weeks, you could say, I've already gotten that down by a minute per mile on average for like an entire run. So that feels gratifying that there's at least some progress. I'm not sure if I'm just getting used to it or if my body is really responding that soon to something like this. And by soon, it's been 2 weeks, 15th run this morning, 127 miles, about 20 hours on feet total, to give some other ways of kind of looking at it. So it seems soon to kind of do an update, but it's also been a little bit of time for my body to kind of start getting used to and accustomed to this kind of running. Now, a couple of things that I had to do. I always was running with the chest strap from the beginning. Even on some of those days I was having some really hard times with it, and it looked like my heart rates were spiking. But it's colder now in Chicago. I haven't been sweating, so even though I was getting this thing pretty wet before I would put it on, to get the sensors to have a way of conducting the signals from my chest to the sensor itself. I don't think the conduction was staying secure the entire time. I've done some repositioning of the heart rate strap as well, and I think that helps a little bit too. But the main thing has been getting, I think it's called conductive gel. This is called Electrode Gel. Super cheap on Amazon. This was the smallest bottle I could find, and the smallest package I could find of it was a 2-pack of these. So I have a lot of that stuff. It's gonna last me a long time. But since I got that, I really haven't had any problems at all with getting what I hope are accurate readings from the heart rate monitor, and that has helped quite a bit, at least in terms of eliminating variables and like when things feel uncomfortable and not right. At least I know, like, okay, it's not an equipment malfunction. This is something that's going on. I need to slow down, whatever. Since I've gotten the Electrode Gel, I haven't really had to do a ton of walking. I don't know if that's just me getting more accustomed to it as well, and so like two things are kind of moving in lockstep, or maybe the Electrode Gel is not relevant at all, but it feels like those things are all working, so I'm not going to tinker with that. For the rest of the winter, I'll probably make sure I have the Electrode Gel on the sensors for any time that I'm using the chest strap. So that's been working out fine. The miles have been slow. I've also started doing some weights for legs. I've done that 2 times now in the 2 weeks that I've started low heart rate training. The days after that are the days where I'm feeling sore, which is a lot of days still at this point, since I'm just introducing weights into my regimen now. The slow miles are very, very welcome. And I think overall, if I was doing kind of the thing that I would normally do, of these like last 120 miles or so, probably, you know, a quarter to a third of them would have been at the exact same pace that I'm running right now, in like the mid 9s. Just because that's kind of where I target for my easy or recovery days. And right now, as I'm ramping up mileage again, as I'm getting used to new things in terms of weights for my legs are sore and tired. So I'm just taking it easy voluntarily. There's other days, though, where running slow is quite a bit of a challenge. And I think that on Saturday was kind of like a major tipping point for me. And I feel like every marathon training blog has its kind of tipping point day, or it's the day where you earn your wings, you earn your soul, however you want to kind of like look at it, the day that defines that entire marathon training plan, the day that you remember when you're in the race and you're trying to dig deep and look for sources of inspiration and motivation to keep going. Today, this Saturday was my day. I went for a longer run. My goal was to get on feet for 2.5 hours and just to see how far I would go. It ended up being about a 16-mile day for me. But at a mile like 15, I got to a part of the trail, and it was Saturday, so a lot of groups have their Saturday long run. And I got passed by a group, and I can hear them very well because I have the AirPods Pro. And they have the pass-through audio, and it's very good at locating sound. So I could hear this group coming behind me, and it happened, and I could hear them from a very far away coming up and getting very close to me, and then soon they were running around me on both sides and then passing me. And it was a group of people that, like, literally 1 exact month before, I had run a 20-mile run with that group of people, running 20 miles, averaging 7.5 minutes per mile, like 2 minutes per mile faster for a longer amount of time than I was running on this Saturday. And that day, Saturday, that group was running a lot slower than 7 minutes, 30 seconds per mile. But they were still running substantially faster than I was. I mean, it just felt like they raced by me. And I felt very lonely at that moment. It felt very sad, because it looked like they were having so much fun. It was just a Saturday, everyone was chatting, it was a great looking group run, and I really wanted to be a part of it, even though I normally don't really like group runs. But I was just, these are my paces now, this is what I do. It's not gonna be forever that I'm running 9:30s, but this is what I have to do to get to where I wanna go now, and I just stayed to my pace, and I watched them, because some parts of the Lakefront Trail, you can see a really far length ahead of you where people are. And I watched them for a long time. And I had a lot of time to think about kind of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, whether it's working. And I mean, that's the main reason why I'm making this video today, is to kind of do that check-in and to have these waypoints along this journey, so other people kind of see it and get a feel for, like, I think me responding in about 2 weeks or 120 miles is probably faster than most people will respond. But I think it's because I think that I had a pretty good aerobic base. For someone that's not done low heart rate training before, I think I had a pretty good aerobic base beforehand. I think aerobic endurance is one of my natural strengths. And so I was hoping that I would respond to it quickly, to have a little bit more kind of a kernel to build off of in terms of figuring out what the rest of this marathon training block is going to look like. Hopefully I've hit that tipping point. I've had that kind of moment of this marathon training block that I can now use to build and move forward from that Saturday run, which was a very difficult time for me to deal with. I just absolutely hate getting past on the lakefront path, even when it's someone that I know, and I know they're a lot faster than me. I still just have a hard time letting people run by me on the lakefront trail. I've done a lot of secret racing or accidental racing along that path, so letting 20 people just blow the doors off me was very difficult. Not that I'm so fast that no one ever passes me. It's just something that a lot of people do along the lakefront path, so it's kind of the normal rules of engagement out there, and so it's just hard to rewire my thinking is more what I'm trying to convey. In terms of looking forward, I've got a 65-mile week coming up this week, and then a 70-mile week. And then I think we're in the last 8 weeks of work. And that, I think, is my critical period for marathon training. And so in that 8 weeks, there are certain very specific goals that I want to hit, some pace goals, some mileage goals that I want to make sure I'm hitting. And so in another 2 weeks, I'll do another update video in terms of where low heart rate training is going on. And here are the two major metrics that I'm going to be looking at. And both of these things are things that I learned from Jeffrey Silver's conversation with Floris Gierman a little while ago. Now, Jeffrey Silver recently ran the Chicago Marathon using these same techniques and had a fantastic performance just a couple of weeks ago. And he had a lot of great insights in terms of the tools he was using, and I'm going to show you some of those as well. So the two main things that I'm going to be using are Metathon and the Elevate Chrome plugin for Strava. And so what Metathon is it takes the Tanda race predictor, which is something that I've talked about before, but it uses your Strava data in a little bit more of a concrete way, and it gives you some other different kinds of numbers. Using that Metathon race predictor as of today, or as of this run, it puts me at a 3 hour and 18 minute and 58 second marathon time, which is very far from where I want to be and slower than what I ran in Chicago. But it's taking the actual last 8 weeks in terms of mileage and pace over all of those miles that I've entered into Strava, and gives me that number. That's a number that I'll be tracing or tracking in another 2 weeks, once I have 2 more weeks of low heart rate training in, and another 135, 140 miles of running into it. So at about the 225 to 250 mile mark, I'll be taking another look, using and kind of crunching the numbers again, or having Metathon crunch those numbers again. And hopefully I'm seeing a trend or a progression in the right direction. I don't need it to show me in 2 weeks that I could run a 3 hour marathon, but I need it to, I don't know what number I'm looking for, but I'm looking for progress. The other thing that I'm looking at is the Elevate plugin. That thing is just absolutely beautiful. It takes all of your historical Strava data and then gives you graphs and tracks 3 main metrics. One is fatigue, one is your running form, which I'm not exactly sure what data it's using to give me that number. I don't really pay much attention to it, but it also gives you a fitness number. And fitness numbers seem like one of those weird, fluffy, imaginary things, but I think there's something to this fitness number. So when I look at it, and I look at kind of where my fitness number is based on this Elevate app, and at my peak of training in Chicago, and then I compare that to the fitness number that I was at my peak for training for the Tunnel Marathon earlier in the year, there's some very different numbers there, which may or may not correlate to the differences in performance. but it's enough that I could use it not as a tool to guide my training, but as a way that I can kind of double check and see if things are going in the right direction, or to confirm kind of what my body is feeling in terms of progress. And so right now my fitness level is really low. It's just keeps diving lower and lower, which is a little bit disheartening to see. But I'm thinking, or I'm hoping that again in another 2 weeks, we'll check in again on what those numbers are. Right now I'm at a 73.2. At the peak of training for Chicago, I was 86.2. The peak of training for Tunnel Marathon, I was at 110.1. So I'm hoping that within another couple of weeks, I've kind of at least bottomed out from like hitting this fitness dip, and it's going in an upward direction. And then as I get into like the core 8 weeks of the marathon training plan, hopefully that number will start to increase. And so that's something that I'll be checking on a regular basis. And when I do my next check-in with you guys, we'll talk about those numbers as well. So that's kind of where I'm at for low heart rate training now. That's where my mind's at. That's where my numbers are at. I just wanted to give you guys a feel for that. A lot of you guys have been very supportive along this journey, even the ones that vehemently disagree with what I'm doing. You guys have still been very supportive, and I'm very thankful that we could all at least have like very civil discussions about the different training approaches. If after another 2 weeks things kind of like continue on like a negative trajectory based on some of like the numbers that I'm looking at, you know, we'll reevaluate and maybe scrap the plan and go with something completely different. Or maybe we'll stay the course and keep going. We'll see. I have a feeling that no matter what it is, there will be a tweak necessary in a couple of weeks, but stay tuned to see what that is. I don't know what that is yet. We're going to have to run the miles and see what happens. That's all I have to say about low heart rate training after about 2 weeks for now. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I'd love to talk to you guys more down there. Before I go, I want to remind you guys, though, about the charity runner for this week. This week is Maurice Washington, who's going to be running the Race for Research on November 17th, and he's raising money for Hope for Heroes. Maurice is a brain cancer survivor himself. He has an incredible survival story. I was happy to donate $70 to his fundraising efforts, and I'll post a link in the description in case you'd like to learn more. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?